This video will be about strategies to read course material and take notes effectively so that learning and test scores will improve. Let's start with the big questions of what do most students do wrong and what should you do instead. First of all, don't read through your whole lesson without stopping. This does not prepare you for an exam, even if you understand what you're reading. Our brains can't process that much information at once without a break. Even the most intelligent people need to give their brains processing time so that they can remember things later. Instead, you need to break up that reading into sections, stop frequently and review, and take breaks. When reading a lesson, use the headings to break up the reading into smaller pieces. For example, in this screenshot from the Fitness and Nutrition course, there are 2 headings, so we will break this up into 2 pieces. When you read one whole chunk of text, stop. Think about what you just read. What did the author focus on? Did you write it down? Read the notes that you wrote about it. Do they make sense? Is there anything that you should add? Asking yourself these questions will help you make sure you are understanding the text. Another big mistake that many students do is simply reading, thinking their brain will absorb the information like a sponge and be ready to take the exam. But reading is not the same as being able to answer questions. So it does not prepare our brains for answering exam questions, even if you understand what you read. Instead of reading nonstop, all students should be quizzing themselves while reading. Let's talk about what that looks like. Research shows that quizzing yourself as you read is the most important thing you can do to study. By asking yourself questions about what you are reading, you're helping your brain store and retrieve information the way that you will need to for an exam. Read one paragraph, then stop. Ask yourself if you understand what you read. Try to write down the main idea of the paragraph without looking at it. If you can't, read it again before moving on. If you still don't understand, ask for help. An instructor may be able to explain it in a different way that makes more sense to you. Repeat this for every paragraph, always stopping to check your understanding. Here's a sample from our Fitness and Nutrition course. As a student is reading this text, how many times should they stop and check in with themselves? 2 times, once for each chunk of text? 5 times, once for each paragraph? Or more than 5 times? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. Two times is not enough. Students should check in with themselves at least once per paragraph. If you said 5 times, that's pretty good, once per paragraph. But remember the suggestion that students should also stop after each bigger chunk of text to review their notes before moving on to the next heading. It's also okay to check in with yourself more than once per paragraph. Sometimes a single sentence is confusing and you need to make sure you understood it. A review question before we move on. What is the most important thing to do when reading? A. Stop and quiz yourself often. B. Highlight your textbook as you read. Or C. Be sure to read an entire chapter in one sitting. I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. And the answer is A. Stop and quiz yourself often. Highlighting your textbook is actually not very helpful, and reading an entire chapter in one sitting is a really bad plan. Our brains need frequent breaks in order to absorb all of that information and make good memories. Taking notes effectively is a good way to set yourself up for success. First of all, whenever possible, you should handwrite your notes instead of typing them. Research shows that our brains remember them better that way. Some students just write words as they read, but it is much more effective to wait until you've reached the end of a paragraph, stopped, and thought about what is important. Then write down what you need to know to remember the main idea. Use your own summary, don't copy word for word. After the main idea, add any details that could be asked about on the exam or could be important for understanding. Also include a page number or assignment title and heading so that you could look it up again if you need to. We're going to look at two different formats for taking notes. Instead of writing out the main ideas, important details, and definitions as sentences, you can write your notes as questions and answers about that information. For example, in this passage from Fitness and Nutrition, you learn that exercise strengthens joints. But instead of writing exercise strengthens joints, make it a question. What does exercise do to joints? If you write the questions on the left side of your paper and the answers on the right, you can easily cover the answer side and then quiz yourself by asking the questions. If you don't want to write your notes as questions and answers, a simple outline method is fine. Write the page number and heading title, then the main idea of the paragraph. Indent a bit and write the details that go with the paragraph and examples. You can underline or put stars next to things that you think are important or that you want to review more. You can highlight any terms, formulas, or anything else that you may need to find again quickly. Repeat this for every paragraph. For an example of outline notes, here is a piece from the civics course. You can see that it's 4 paragraphs, and here are my notes from that page. You don't need to read it all. This is just an example of the structure. So we began with the page reference and the heading that's on that page so that I know where this information came from. Then each of the 4 paragraphs I read and then wrote down the main idea as one sentence. Underneath them, we put the explaining details from each paragraph. And there's one definition given, so that went in with the explaining details. So the important parts of this entire page are laid out in about 75 words. There's one more poll question before we go. Which of the following is not a good method for writing notes? A, write main ideas and their supporting details, definitions, and page numbers. B, create questions on the left side of the paper and their answers on the right side. C, write down almost the entire page word for word so that you don't miss anything. So we talked about how the first two are both good ways to take notes, but you definitely don't want to write down the whole page word for word because that's not really helping you organize the information. If you're writing down everything on the textbook page, you might as well just read the page again. So A and B are both ways to write down just main ideas and supporting details, either as an outline or as questions and answers. So we hope this helps with your studies. Please watch our other video about how to study effectively. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact an instructor.